这个频道在开始的时候呢，我之前有跟大家分享一本书，是我学生时代的时候看的，它叫做《Hatchet》，作者叫 Gary Paulsen。OK，这本书呢，我后来去简单查了一下，它中文叫《首府男孩》。OK，那感觉已经有被翻译成中文了。那 Hatchet means axe，OK，它应该是比我们背的 axe 还来的小一点点。那我之前呢是有纯粹呢把它当做是一个朗读的练习，对。那我记得没错的话呢，应该是到第22页，OK，就是 page 16，OK。那当初呢，有一个算是影片吧，就是固定就是纯粹鼓励各位呢找一本书，来朗读或阅读这样子。那这本书难度偏高，那我给我自己的期许就是，嗯，练习朗读这样子。那刚好呢，我有几个朋友呢就看到我的频道，然后就点到我的影片，那他们就开玩笑说，因为我声音很单调，所以很适合睡觉。所以呢，我就想说，OK，如果你有睡眠的障碍，然后呢听英文呢很好入睡，你可以把这系列的影片呢，就是我纯朗读的影片呢，当做是一个催眠的一些教材，OK，你完全不用当做是一种学习英文的一个内容哦，就这个系列你当做是一个纯呃纯睡眠的一个音档或者是影片。那我阅读的时间可能会比较长，我过去的影片大约都是十分钟，大约都10分钟。那阅读的部分呢，朗读部分呢，毕竟是我自己要练习朗读，因为英文其实不讲呢，就会退步，所以我决定把这系列的影片呢，拉长一点点。一方面我可以朗读练习比较久，另外呢，各位也可以看一下说，到多久之后呢才会睡着。好，那不多说，不用在意听朗读的内容，只要纯粹无聊的听影片的朗读的英文就可以了。好，那之前是停在 But there was nothing，到结尾，那我们就延续下去。我大概会念10分钟以上，那至于多久呢？就看书的结尾到哪边，那我们就再评估。OK。Hatchet. Just the green of the trees, endless green and lakes, scattered more and more thickly as the plane flew where? He was flying but did not know where. He had no idea where he was going. He looked at the dashboard of the plane, studied the dials, and hoped to get some help, hoped to find a compass, but it was all so confusing, a jumble of numbers and lights. OK，这边前情提要一下，我记得没错呢，内容发生的是一个小男孩，家庭没有这么顺遂，然后他搭飞机要去找他的父亲吧，然后是这样子，因为他们家庭，好像父母离异。那在一人就是飞机上呢是小飞机，好像叫 Cessna，然后只有机师跟他。后来机师好像突然不舒服，好像是晕过去还是怎么样，那就只剩 Brian 这个人，然后他现在就在处于就是好一个人操控飞机的情况下。OK。One lighted display in the top center of the dashboard said the number 342. Another next to it said 222. Down beneath that were dials with lines that seemed to indicate what the wings were doing, tipping or moving, and one dial with a needle pointing to the number 70, which he only thought might be the altimeter, the device that told him his height above the ground, or above sea level. Somewhere he had read something about altimeters, but he couldn't remember what or where or anything about them. Slightly to the left and below the altimeter, he saw a small rectangular panel with a lighted dial and two knobs. His eyes had passed over it 2 or 3 times before he saw what was written in tiny letters On top of the panel, transmitter 221 was stamped in the metal, and it hit him, finally, that this was the radio. The radio, of course. He had to use a radio. When the pilot had been hit that way, he couldn't bring himself to say that the pilot was dead. Couldn't think it. He had been trying to use the radio. Brian looked to the pilot. The headset was still on his head, turned sideways a bit from his jamming back into the seat, and the microphone switch was clipped into his belt. Brian had to get the headset from the pilot, had to reach over and get the headset from the pilot, or he would not be able to use the radio to call for help. He had to reach over. His hands began trembling again. He did not want to touch the pilot, did not want to reach for him. But he had to get the radio. He lifted his hand from the wheel, just slightly, and held them waiting to see what would happen. The plane flew on normally, smoothly. All right, he thought, now to do this thing. He turned and reached for the headset, slid it from the pilot's head, one eye on the plane, waiting for it to dive. The headset came easily, but the microphone switch at the pilot's belt was jammed in, and he had to pull to get it loose. When he pulled, his elbow bumped the wheel and pushed it in, and the plane started down in a shallow dive. Brian grabbed the wheel and pulled it back, too hard again, and the plane went through another series of stomach-wrenching swoops up and down before he could get it under control. When things had settled again, he pulled at the mic cord once more and at last jerked the cord free. It took him another second or two to place the headset on his own head and position the small microphone tube in front of his mouth. He had seen the pilot use it, had seen him depress the switch at his belt, so Brian pushed the switch in and blew into the mic. He heard the sound of his breath in the headset. Hello? Is anybody listening on this? Hello? He repeated 2 or 3 times and then waited, but heard nothing except his own breathing. Panic came then. He had been afraid, had been stopped with the terror of what was happening, but now panic came and he began to scream into the microphone, scream over and over. Help, somebody help me. I'm in this plane and don't know. And he started crying with the screams, crying and slamming his head against the wheel of the plane, causing him to jerk down then back up. But again he heard nothing but the sound of his own sobs in the microphone, his own screams mocking him, coming back into his ears. The microphone. Awareness cut into him. He had used a CB radio in his uncle's pickup once. He had to turn the mic switch off to hear anybody else. He reached to his belt and released the switch. For a second, all he heard was the whoosh of the empty airwaves. Then, through the noise and static, he heard a voice. Whoever is calling on this radio net, I repeat, release your mic switch. You are covering me. You are covering me. Over. It stopped and Brian hit his mic switch. I hear you. This is me. He released the switch. Roger, I have you now. The voice was very faint and breaking up. Please state your difficulty and location and say over to signal end of transmission. Over. Please state my difficulty. Brian thought, God, my difficulty. I'm in a plane with a pilot who has had a heart attack or something. He can't fly, and I don't know how to fly. Help me, help. He turned his mic off without ending transmission properly. There was a moment's hesitation before answer. Your signal is breaking up and I lost most of it. Understand? Pilot, you can't fly, correct? Over. Brian could barely hear him now. Heard mostly noise and static. That's right, I can't fly. The plane is flying now, but I don't know how much longer. Over. Lost signal. Your location, please. Flight number, location, verb. I don't know my flight number or location. I don't know anything. I told you that. Over. He waited, but there was nothing. Once, for a second, he thought he heard a break in the noise, some part of a word, but it could have been static. 2, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. The plane roared and Brian listened, but no but heard no one. Then he hit the switch again. I do not know the flight number. My name is Brian Robson, and we left Hampton, New York, headed for the Canadian oil field to visit my father, and I do not know how to fly an airplane and the pilot. He let go of the mic. His voice was starting to rattle, and he felt as if he might start screaming at any second. He took a deep breath. If there is anybody listening who can help me fly a plane, please answer. Again, he released the mic, but he heard nothing but the hissing of the noise in the headset. But after half an hour of listening and repeating the cry for help, he tore the headset off in frustration and threw it to the floor. It all seemed so hopeless. Even if he did get somebody, what could anybody do? Tell him to be careful? Oh, so hopeless. He tried to figure out the dials again. He thought he might know which was speed. It was a lighted number that read 160, but he didn't know if that was actual miles an hour or kilometers, or if it just meant how fast the plane was moving through the air and not over the ground. He knew air speed was different from ground speed, but not by how much. Parts of books he read about flying came to him, how wings worked, how the propeller pulled the plane through the sky. Simple things that wouldn't help him now. Nothing could help him now. An hour passed. He picked up the headset and tried again. It was, he knew, in the end all he had. But there was no answer. He felt like a prisoner kept in a small cell that was hurtling through the sky at what he thought to be 160 miles an hour. Headed, he did not know where, just headed somewhere until... There it was. Until what? Until he ran out of fuel. When the plane ran out of fuel, it would go down, period. Or he could pull the throttle out and make it go down now. He had seen the pilot push the throttle in to increase speed. If he pulled the throttle back out, the engine would slow down and the plane would go down. Those were his choices. He could wait for the plane to run out of gas and fall, or he could push the throttle in and make it happen sooner. If he waited for the plane to run out of fuel, he would go farther, but he did not know which way he was moving. When the pilot had jerked, he had moved the plane, but Brian could not remember how much or if it had come back to its original course, since he did not know the original course anyway, and he could only guess at which display might be the compass, the one reading 342. He did not know how, where he had been, or where he was going, so it didn't make much difference if he went down now or waited. Everything in him rebelled against stopping the engine and falling now. He had a vague feeling that he was wrong to keep heading as the plane was heading, a feeling that he might be going off in the wrong direction, but he could not bring himself to stop the engine and fall. Now he was safe, or safer than if he went down. The plane was flying. He was still breathing. When the engine stopped, he would go down. So he left the plane running, holding altitude, and kept trying the radio. He worked out a system. Every 10 minutes, by the small clock built into the dashboard, he tried the radio with a simple message: I need help. Is there anybody listening to me? In the times between transmissions, he tried to prepare himself for what he knew was coming. When he ran out of fuel, the plane would start down. He guessed that without the propeller pulling, he would have to push the nose down to keep the plane flying. He thought he may have read that somewhere, or it just came to him. Either way, it made sense. He would have to push the nose down to keep flying speed, and then, just before he hit, he would have to pull the nose back up to slow the plane as much as possible. It all made sense. Glide down, then slow the plane and hit. He would have to find a clearing as he went down. The problem with that was he hadn't seen one clearing since he'd started flying over the forest. Some swamps, but they had trees scattered through them. No roads, no trails, no clearings. just the legs, and it came to him that he would have to use the leg for landing. If he went down in the trees, he was certain to die. The trees would tear the plane to pieces as he went into them. He would have to come down in a lake. No, on the edge of a lake. He would have to come down near the edge of a lake and try to slow the plane as much as possible just before he hit the water. Easy to say, he thought, hard to do. Easy say, hard do. Easy say, hard do. It became a chant that beat him, but beat with the engine. Easy say, hard do. Impossible to do. He repeated the radio call 17 times at 10-minute intervals, working on what he would do between transmissions. Once more he reached over to the pilot and touched him on the face, but the skin was cold, hard cold, death cold, and Brian turned back to the dashboard. He did what he could, tighten his seatbelt, position himself, rehearse mentally again and again what his procedure should be. When the plane ran out of gas, he should hold the nose down and head for the nearest lake and try to fly the plane kind of onto the water. That's how he thought of it. Kind of flying the plane onto the water, and just before it hit, he should pull back on the wheel and slow the plane down to reduce the impact. Over and over his mind ran the picture of how it would go. The plane running out of gas, flying the plane onto the water, the crash, from pictures he'd seen on television. He tried to visualize it. He tried to be ready. But between the 17th and 18th radio transmissions, without a warning, the engine coughed, roared violently for a second, and died. There was a sudden silence, cut only by the sound of the windmilling propeller and the wind past the cockpit. Brian pushed the nose of the plane down.